What's going on, guys? This is the Red Rogue, and today I'll be starting our 4-part series on Covenant overviews. This series will cover things like Covenant signature abilities, Covenant Soulbind trees, and Covenant-specific features for each Sanctum. For our first episode, we'll be starting with the Necrolords of Maldraxxus, so let's see what they have in store for us. So, the Necrolords are considered the military strong arm of the Shadowlands, and were made up of several houses. As you'll learn from a bit of the quest chain that brings you through Maldraxxus as you level through Shadowlands, things aren't quite working as intended, a true sign of a feature in a Blizzard game. So without spoiling too much for you, things work out pretty okay once you show up, and the Necrolords would be honored to have you as a member of their Covenant. Once you hit max level, they don't help lobies out apparently. Upon reaching level 60, you'll be given the opportunity to pledge your loyalty to one of the 4 Covenants of the Shadowlands. This is thankfully not a permanent decision, so if you end up finding that one isn't quite what you wanted it to be, you can switch this around, though going back to the same Covenant will require a few hoops to be jumped through. Upon selecting the Necrolords as your Covenant of choice, you'll be directed to take a flight to the Bleak Redoubt, which is the location of your new Covenant Sanctum. You'll be given a nice little welcoming ceremony type thing, and then will be entrusted with your Covenant-specific ability, Fleshcraft. Fleshcraft has a 2-minute cooldown, and is an ability you can channel for up to 4 seconds. By channeling Fleshcraft, you'll gain an Absorb Shield equal to 20% of your maximum health for 2 minutes. If you use this near fallen enemies, the size of this shield will increase, up to a maximum of 50% against powerful enemies. Next, we'll look over the Soulbind trees of the Necrolords. These are essentially talent trees that have unique effects on them, as well as empty slots for Conduits. Conduits are class and spec-specific bonuses that can benefit you in various ways and will be earned from numerous sources, such as world quests, dungeons, and the PvP vendor. They are divided into 3 types: Potency, which is the damage and healing throughput increasers, Finesse, which is the utility-oriented bonuses, and Endurance, which are for defensive improvements. Each Soulbind tree will have various paths you can take as you earn Renown with your Covenant, which you can kind of think of as a reputation grind you improve upon by doing a couple weekly quests for your Covenant. One thing to keep in mind ahead of time about Covenant Soulbinds is that you only start off with 1, and will unlock the other 2 Soulbind characters by completing various steps in your Covenant's campaign questline. However, this questline is locked behind Renown levels as well, so it is time-gated as far as how quickly you'll earn new Soulbind characters and new Soulbind trait rows on each tree. As your Necrolord, we'll unlock Plague Deviser Marileth first. His Soulbind tree will start with Volatile Solvent, which adds a new effect to our Fleshcraft ability. Basically, if we use this ability near certain enemy corpse types, we will gain various buffs. These buffs last for 2 minutes and can range from things like healing you for 2% of your maximum health every time you kill an enemy, to mastery buffs or even primary stat buffs. Pretty nifty and definitely an interesting addition to the ability. This is also a good example of paths that branch off in Soulbind trees, as you'll have to pick one of these paths, so you'll only be able to get one of these following buffs, so keep that in mind as you see these Soulbind trees in the future. Ooze's Frictionless Coating will give you a sizable Absorb Shield of 15% of your maximum health for 10 seconds when you drop below half health. This can trigger once every 30 seconds. Travel with Bloop will make you gain stacks of Bloop's Wanderlust while you're standing still. Once you reach 5 stacks, your movement speed is increased by 10% for 2 minutes. It seems to take about 2 seconds to gain a stack of Wanderlust, so about 8 to 10 seconds, at least from the testing I've done in the past. Plaguey's Preemptive Strike will cause your first attack or spell cast on an enemy to increase the damage you deal to them by 10% for 10 seconds. This can only be active on one target at a time, so you can't just drop like a big AoE hit and do 10% extra damage to all your targets or anything like that, unfortunately. Kevin's Keyring will allow the user to open a lockbox up to level 60, once every 12 hours. For every 1 second you channel Fleshcraft, this cooldown is reduced by an hour. So basically every 3 times you fully channel your Fleshcraft ability, you'll be able to open a lockbox. Plagueborn Cleansing Slime will cause your armor to sometimes improve in durability when you kill enemies. And lastly, Ultimate Form. While channeling Fleshcraft, you are immune to crowd control and you regenerate 2% of your health per second. If you finish the channel entirely, you gain 4 seconds of immunity to crowd control effects, and you will continue to heal for 2% health every second. So this is a really wordy way of saying that you'll heal for 16% of your health if you channel Fleshcraft for the full duration, basically. The CC immunity I'm sure could be kinda cool for PvP, I guess, but it's really kinda obvious when you're doing that and you can't move while channeling Fleshcraft while you're using this particular Soulbind character, so you're kinda just sitting there holding your hands in the air like you just don't care, I don't know. Up next we have Emeni. Emeni's first trait in her Soulbind tree is Lead by Example. This makes it so anytime you use your class-specific Necrolord ability, you'll increase your primary stat by 5% and nearby allies will gain 2% for 5 seconds. You'll gain an additional 5% of your primary stat for each ally you affect with that bonus, giving up to an extra 15%. Emeni's magnificent skin causes your casts of Fleshcraft to increase your stamina by 5% for 30 seconds. As long as you use the ability, even for just literally a split second, this stamina buff will trigger. Or if you choose the other path, Emeni's ambulatory flesh will allow you to channel Fleshcraft while moving. Cartilaginous legs causes you to gain an absorb shield for 30 seconds that is equal to how much falling damage you just took, which I'm sure people will find some really cheesy ways to use this one. Or you could get a really totally gross sounding Hearth Kidney Stone. I could actually see this being kinda useful in some situations like farming, as the Kidney Stone normally has a 12-hour cooldown, but it's reduced by 5 minutes every time you kill an enemy. Gristled Toes makes your movement speed increase by 3% for every nearby enemy, up to a total of 15%. Gnashing Chompers grant you a 3% haste buff for 10 seconds whenever you kill an enemy, stacking up to a total of 15%. And each stack that you get does refresh the buff, so you can keep it rolling quite a bit actually. And lastly, Sulfuric Emission. Yeah, you can guess what that is, I'm sure. Ew. When reduced below 20% health, you fear nearby enemies for 4.5 seconds. This can only occur once per minute or after eating sufficient bean burritos. Oh, sorry, I think that last part was from the alpha tooltip, my bad. Our final Soulbind is Bonesmith Heirmir. Forgebone Reveries is our first Soulbind trait of the tree. Upon death, your armor continues to fight, allowing you to fight for an additional 10 seconds. During this time, your damage and healing done is reduced by 50% and you cannot receive any healing. Not gonna lie, this sounds kinda lame, but also pretty hilarious if you won an arena match or cleared a badass mythic progression raid boss thanks to this ability, but I find that really unlikely. Resourceful Fleshcrafting causes any enemy you defeat to reduce the cooldown of Fleshcraft by 1 second. Serrated Spalders makes anyone who attacks you in melee range take a little bit of shadow damage over 5 seconds. Runeforged Spurs increases your mounted movement speed by 5%. If you get attacked while mounted though, your mount speed is increased by an extra 10% for 30 seconds. Bonesmith's Satchel basically just gives you a chance at some extra loot drops when defeating enemies that award experience or honor. Most Covenants seem to have one of these that I can remember, and for the Necrolords, these satchels will contain ore and gems in them. Heirmir's Arsenal Gore Stompers makes it so that whenever you damage or heal a target below 35% health, you will gain a 35% increased movement speed buff for 5 seconds after you start moving, and this can occur once every minute. Heirmir's Arsenal Marrowed Gemstone is a pretty interesting little crit buff. Basically, once you land 10 critical hits, you gain an 18% increased crit chance bonus for 10 seconds. This can occur once per minute. And finally, Heirmir's Arsenal Ravenous Pendant. Defeating an enemy restores 3% of your maximum health every 6 seconds for 6 seconds, and can stack up to 5 times. Adding stacks will refresh the duration of this buff, which can result in some pretty hefty heals if you can keep a steady flow of enemies in your path. Okay, so now we'll go over the Covenant Sanctum benefits. Each Sanctum has 3 virtually identical perks and 1 unique one. Every Covenant will have a teleportation system that allows members of their Covenant to move around their Covenant zone more easily, so in our case as Necrolords that would be Maldraxxus. You can unlock numerous portals that work as fast travel around the zone. You'll also have access to the Anima Conductor. Anima is a new currency you'll be collecting from various sources throughout the Shadowlands, as it is quite literally what makes the Shadowlands function. The Anima Conductor will let you focus some of that anima you've been collecting into a specific event of your choosing, such as unlocking a new world quest which should have better rewards, or to fight a unique enemy for rewards as well. Eventually, you'll be able to do this often enough that you can permanently channel some of that anima flow to those zones, so you can eventually have all of these unlocked as extra rewards all the time. There is also the command table, which is basically a newly revised version of the follower missions we've had in the game since Warlords of Draenor. These have been updated slightly, with more of an RPG and strategy focus put on them, but more or less they function just the same as what we've seen before. You'll select a few of your companions as well as some troops to go off on missions for rewards like anima, reputation tokens, and gold. For the Necrolord specific portion of the Sanctum, we have the Abomination Factory. This is basically where we will be able to stitch together our own bodyguards or helpers for when we're out doing world content in Shadowlands. To do this, we'll collect items such as malleable flesh and superior parts. There will be many different souls who need a body, and you'll be able to make specific ones for each role they will serve. Some will be more like tanky followers, whereas others are healers or damage dealing types. There will also be cosmetic items you can make for your constructs, though they will require special and hard to find items to make a lot of them. And Covenants will also have a slew of cosmetic goodies waiting for you as well. There are many cool things that await you as you increase your Renown level. Weapon appearances, armor sets, mounts, a new Hearthstone specific to your Covenant, battle pets, titles, and more await you as you rise up through the ranks of the Necrolords. There is such an absurd amount of things you'll earn that it could be its own episode of content, and I've actually already covered Renown to a certain degree, so if you want to know a little bit more about the whole Renown process, I'll link that video now. But to keep this part short, I'll just refer you folks to a Wowhead link covering all of the Covenant Renown goodies you'll be able to earn. Trust me, there are a lot of them. And there you have it, folks. All of the unique features of the Necrolord Covenant. You will also earn a class-specific Necrolord ability, but that is a little bit outside of the scope of this video since this is more of an overview of the Covenant as a whole. I hope this video was helpful to you though, and if so, any likes, comments, or new subscribers are all fantastic ways of showing your support for the channel. If you're new around in my little corner of the YouTube algorithm, then I'd like to welcome you to come check out the rest of the channel. I do new uploads every weekday on a variety of content, ranging from things like overviews, guides, tutorials, add-ons, weak auras, and of course, rogue-specific things. I'd also like to take this time to thank all of my regular viewers, commenters, subscribers, and especially my patrons, who all help make these Shiba Shenanigans possible. Thank you all so much for watching. This is the Red Rogue, and I'll see you guys around.